Speaker, and I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as would prevent the Leader of the Opposition from moving the following motion immediately. That the House 1 notes that A. On Monday the Prime Minister refused to guarantee that no worker would be worse off because of his industrial relations changes. B. Today the government has introduced legislation which leaves workers worse off. C. At a time when wages are already at record lows, the Prime Minister's changes will mean workers' take-home pay will be cut. D. While claiming the economy is going so well that JobKeeper and JobSeeker can be cut, the Prime Minister is using the pandemic as cover to cut take-home pay. E. It's not just businesses who've had a difficult year, workers have too. F. Nurses, supermarket workers, cleaners, childcare workers, teachers, truck drivers, aged care workers and all the frontline workers in Australia who have kept the nation running during this pandemic are being given a Christmas gift of a pay cut by this Prime Minister. And G, this is not the first time this government has attacked take-home pay, and 2, therefore condemns the Prime Minister for using the pandemic to cut the take-home pay of Australian workers. Mr Speaker, the fact is that the heroes of the pandemic deserve better than this Scrooge of a Prime Minister.
The Leader of the Opposition will resume his seat. The Leader of the House
I move that the member no longer be heard.
The Leader of the House has moved the Leader of the Opposition be no further heard. All those of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes.
You're silly.
Full details of this omnibus bill have now been released. We know it addresses casual work, it addresses greenfields agreements and wage theft, but perhaps the most contentious issue is the one that was revealed today, and that is the government is moving to try and exempt businesses that have been affected by COVID from the BOOT, the Better Off Overall test, when negotiating new pay deals with workers. Now, the whole idea of the BOOT is to ensure that in any new enterprise agreement that workers are better off than they would be under the baseline awards. What the government is seeking to do here is extend emergency provisions in the legislation that would allow businesses to negotiate with workers, to go to the Fair Work Commission and argue that because of the COVID crisis, they believe that this pay deal that they're trying to strike should be exempt from the Better Off Overall test. Now, the government believes that this will help businesses stay afloat, which will ultimately benefit those workers. Labor, though, the ACTU have a very different view. Today, Anthony Albanese describing this change as a nasty change. The ACTU Secretary Sally McManus telling Parliament that they need to oppose this legislation. So, you know, it's the penultimate sitting day of the year, and I think the government has picked an almighty fight with Labor and the ACTU over its proposed overhaul of industrial relations laws. It won't be debated on in this session. It'll now go to a Senate committee for closer examination. There will inevitably be changes to this legislation before it's debated on next year. But we'll throw back to Sydney now, Eliza Harvey, and just for our viewers, the reason why we're cutting away from this division now is because the coalition controls the numbers in the lower house. So it means that for the next 8 or 16 minutes, we're going to be going through a series of rolling divisions, which does not make for great TV. So that's why we'll go back to Sydney